Hey, Baruch Levi, be here from the Defiant Spirit. I want to share with you an idea that I've talked about before, but I'm sure, like the rest of you, could use a refresher and get back into really the essence of what the Enneagram is all about. Why am I so passionate about it? Why do I use it so heavily in my life and working with my clients? I mean, it truly has been a game changing roadmap for me. For many years, I leaned heavily on the Jewish tradition to help guide me, and I still do fundamentally the bits and pieces of it. And yet, in some ways, I just never really resonated with it as a practical how to daily application to live out divinity, spirituality, whatever the hell you want to call it, in my life, to live my true self, as Viktor Frankl calls it, my nous, my spirit, my essence. The Enneagram, it's like stripped down version of some of these great traditions I've studied. In fact, in many ways, it's tied up with Kabbalah, which I'll get into in a second here. But it's like stripped down of all of the have tos and the thou shalls and the thou shall nots, and it's just the distilled roadmap of how to navigate, as Frankl teaches, to navigate between stimulus and response. There is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. Between stimulus, shit happening, and me choosing my response, there's a moment, there's a place, there's a space. And I need to understand that space. I need to explore that space so I don't react and I can choose my response. So the Enneagram is that space between stimulus and response, between reaction and responding. And when I can understand that space, I can expand that space. I've been doing some podcasts with Julie Mouse on mindfulness and expanding the space. Check those out. But I want to talk about the Enneagram from the perspective of energy and how I can use this system to help move my energy forward. Isn't that really what we're after? I mean, I talk with people who are exceptional in certain areas. I talk with somebody who's a master pianist, and they play concert level piano. I've worked with somebody before who's a professional athlete. I've worked with somebody before who's like a master scientist. And they all describe this place that I want to get to in my life, whatever it is I'm doing. And sometimes it's referred to as flow, right? It was made famous by a book by that name, Flow, by a man whose name is actually harder than mine to say, Baruch Halevi. It's actually harder than that, which is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Don't ask me how to spell the last name. But Mihaly is believe was a Harvard professor, and an important figure in the positive psychology movement. Bottom line is, talks about flow state. Well, spirituality talks about that flow state too. And that's the unencumbered state we can all get to when we're in our mojo, when we're in our rhythm, when we're in our vibe. It doesn't just have to be those big areas of life. You might just be in the flow state when you're jogging. Once in a while I can get there. Half the time I'm like pushing my ass forward, like bribing myself to go a little bit further. But sometimes I just get into that flow state. Some people talk about it making love, because it depends on who you're making love to and if it's the right time, the right person, the right reasons. You can get there with food in the right way, in the right context. You can get there with any kind of hobby that's you've put enough time and energy into. You can really hit that sweet spot of almost mastery. Well, that's the Enneagram. It shows us where we are in flow, where we get out of flow. Each of us has all 9 of these energies within us. One of them is going to be our core go-to flow. Like I can get there with 4 sometimes. That's my creative artistic side. I can get there with 7. That's how I think. And, sometimes I'll just be riffing and going and thinking, entrepreneurial mode. And like, I'm just in that flow. But more often than not, I'm there when I'm an 8. And that's that intensity, that breaking barriers and transforming, whatever I'm involved in, sort of that, I don't know, what's that, boundless energy kind of a thing. We all have one of these. It's going to be our default type. So I thought I'd just walk through all 9 energy types, but thinking about, hey, that one's my go-to flow, but you know what? Maybe I really want more 2 flow in my life, or 5 flow, or whatever it is. So I just want to walk through all 9 types from the perspective of flow, with you keeping in mind that these are within you, waiting to be discovered, some of them waiting to be tapped into, some of them waiting to be unblocked, some of them waiting to be bridled, to be harnessed, to be brought down. I got to work on bringing down the 8. You might need to work on bringing it up. The last thing is, one of the reasons why I love this as a spiritual roadmap is because most religion, like anything else in life, becomes calcified. It becomes stagnant. And one of the areas I see that is the name of God. I can't stand the idea that God has a name, that God damn it somehow is blasphemous. Show me where in the Hebrew Bible the word God appears. It doesn't exist. It ain't a thing. I speak Hebrew. There's not a word in the Bible that says God. Those are not Hebrew characters. The Bible was written in Hebrew. There are actually, according to Kabbalah, 72 names for God, none of which are the names for God. What they are placeholders, not for God, but for the experience of God or divinity or flow in our lives. The most accurate name for God, according to the mystics, is when Moses says to God, I think it's Exodus chapter 3, verse 13 or 14, essentially, what's your name? What do I call you? The Israelites are going to want to know who this person is, or this being is, this entity is. What is God supposed to say? Like, this is just a bizarre question, right? Bob, John. If I can call you Betty, you can call me Al. 80s reference to, I think was it Paul Simon? Anyways, there isn't a name for God. So what is God's response? Brilliant and beautiful, of course. Yea, God. Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I will be that I will be. Sometimes translated as I am that I am. That just sounds like Popeye, though. I will be that I will be is the literal translation, and that's the best translation. Why? Because it's about becoming. It's about unfolding. It's about verbing. God is not a proper noun. God is a verb. The experience, that's all we get in this lifetime, is the experience of divinity, of the experience of the flow. These are 9 different ways. There's flow in our life. There's flow in your life. There's flow in this universe. That energy, these 9 energies, are the fundamentals of divinity in this experience. And we can tap into these energies if we start paying attention to them, if we become conscious of them and start harnessing them and understanding them in our lives. There's actually 10 according to Kabbalah. If you ever look at a tree of life, which is the Kabbalistic sort of DNA, if you will, looks like a DNA strand, there's 10 what are called sphirot. There are 10 circles, not so dissimilar than this. This one is 9, that one is 10. Aha. But the goal of the Enneagram, it has been said, is to get back to the 10th. They're the same thing. These are the 9 divine emanations, the flow in our lives that you can tap into. If you want to be in that godlike experience, whether it's running or making love, I don't know how I put those in the same category, because to me those are wildly different experiences, but maybe not to the joggers amongst us. We can tap into the divinity of flow all around us if we get unstuck. Interestingly, in religion, what is the term we use for being stuck religiously? Idolatry. Now, most of us have turned it into some stupid totem pole that people bow down to. That's not idolatry. Idolatry, according to Kabbalah, is making the infinite finite, making the dynamic static, making God stuck into a box, putting a little label on it and saying God as if that is the source of energy in this universe. So idolatry is about freezing the flow, getting stuck in the flow in our life, becoming so used to a particular way of being, a default operating system, that we start believing that's what it is. For instance, money. Money, there's nothing bad or good about money. It is not the root of all evil. It is not good, inherently good. It is a means. That's why we call it a means. It is currency. Just like electricity, it's supposed to flow. It only becomes a problem when we hold on to it, when we over-attach to it, over-identify with it, when we forget that it's not an end unto itself. It's a means to buy food, to have experiences, to give, to do. It can be wonderful as long as we are going with the flow when it comes to money, or sexuality, or food, or you name it. When something becomes stuck and static and routinized, is that a word? What it was once said that a routine is simply a rut, and a rut is simply a grave with both ends knocked out. When we get stuck in that static space, then we have lost our connection to divinity. We have lost our connection to the flow. We've lost our connection to the Enneagram. The work of the Enneagram is to get back into flow. So here we go. Enneagram 1. The flow of Enneagram 1 is order. Now, that may not sound like flow. However, I see it. When ones have their order, their structure, they can start to flow. And I think of it like jazz music. You know, great jazz musicians. I love jazz music. I listen to, falling near my chair. I listen to Coltrane. I listen to Miles Davis. I listen to Charlie Parker. These guys were geniuses, but they first mastered the structure of the music. Before you can flow, you must have structure. You must have that one quality, that containment. If you want a child to have the best play experience, then give them a container, right? We need, a room that's safe, secure. It can be as messy as you want inside of there, but they need to have a structure. In all aspects of life, if we want to get to a peak performance, a true flow state, all of us at some level to differing degrees need that one quality of structure, and that structure is a pathway to flow. I'm not going to exhaust each Enneagram type. I just want to give you a flavor for how each type flows. 2s tend to flow in relationship. When they are in sync with the people around them. When they're not in sync with the people around them, it can be totally disruptive. Sort of like the chaos to the 1 is the disrupted relationships to a 2. I see this all the times with 2. They need to get realigned with the people who are important to them and close to them. And when they're in that sync, they're in sync with the people around them. They're in sync with themselves, their highest self. And I see 2s quite often go to flow in relationship. 3s, how do 3s get to flow? 3s are the achiever. They're the doer. They're the ones who are making the impossible possible. They take ideas and translate them into a reality. So when 3s are in the doing space, right, and they're moving and they're grooving, sort of stay out of their way, because they are the ones who are just got to go with that flow. So that manifestation quality in all of us, 2 is in all of us. When I'm in sync with Ariella or the kids, right, I'm in that 2 dance of flowing energy. When I'm in that manifestation, that creation mode, when I'm translating that idea into reality and I'm doing it efficiently and methodically, not like the 4, which is a little more messy, but I'm doing it in this sort of elegant, sustainable, replicable system that I can pass on to others, I'm in the 3 flow. Enneagram 4, in the flow, when they are in the depths of authenticity. I say depths are at the bottom of the Enneagram. 4 and 5, these are the messy types. 4s are messy emotionally. They're feeling it. They're in there. I think of, 4s sometimes seem high, like on marijuana, even if they're not smoking, because they'll just get into. I listen to Ariella. I don't know if she's ever smoked. She certainly hasn't smoked since I've known her. Not her thing. She doesn't she won't even drink caffeine, nothing. She doesn't need to. She goes into this 4 space where she's talking in her shamanistic language, bringing down divine energy, feminine energy, and bringing it into this world. It's her art. She turns things into a canvas. Fours are all artists, and when they just get going on their art, it might not be painting or drawing. They might be a mechanic. They'll turn it into an art. Whatever they do becomes an art form. And when they're in that place of originality and authenticity, they are going with their flow. Enneagram 5, no doubt about it, thinking. Enneagram 5s are artists of the mind. They are creative, but they have a capacity to systematize ideas, synthesize ideas, taking these complex algorithms, turning them into Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. These are all 5s who founded these artistic pieces. Like them, don't like them. What they have done by taking these complex ideas and making them usable, accessible to all of us, just remarkable. I think of like a Warren Buffett behind his newspaper, looking at today's financials, putting together ideas and what to buy and what to sell and how things fit in and fit out and don't fit in. Enneagram 5s doing the flow dance in their mind. Enneagram 6s, they flow through life by really understanding group dynamics. I watch 6s sort of just understanding the way an organization works, the way a community works, or a business works, a family works. They really understand who has the power and who doesn't, how to navigate safely and securely. 6s get into a flow when they can create a structure like ones and 6s have a lot in common, but theirs is more from a place of making sure they're getting their needs met, they're protected, other people around them are protected. I have a good friend, Tommy, you know who you are. I think about him gardening in his garden, right? Creating this beautiful garden, like that one quality, but much more from making sure everything's in its place and connects and moves and flows. Enneagram 7s, they are definitely like the 5. 5s are synthesizing ideas, getting into that flow state, putting together algorithms in their head or solving puzzles. 7s are going to be doing it more from a place of innovation, of vision. These are the entrepreneurs. I think of Steve Jobs, probably an 8, but it could have been a 7. Imagining an iPhone, being told it can't be done. This elegant creature that he created, for better, for worse, maybe for worse. 7s are, I think of like a Richard Branson, who's off to the next startup that he was going to create in the early days, or company, empire that he was building. So just synthesizing ideas and then applying them out in the world. They're really great dreamers, imagination, right? Imagining a better tomorrow kind of a thing in that flow state. Enneagram 8s, we are in flow, I think for me anyways, around disrupting the status quo. I mentioned it before, but when I start to think about, for instance, right now I'm working on efforts to disrupt men who are stuck, stagnant at midlife, who haven't yet maybe had a shattering, as they call it, but need to get their ass shattered real quickly so they can wake up and work on their marriage, work on their business, work on their life before it's too late. And I know maybe it sounds a little twisted, but I think so much excitement for me in disrupting the status quo. But from a place of, truth and justice, not from a place of just being a difficult 8-hole. And last but not least, the 9s in a flow state when they find that path like water down a mountain, almost avoiding the conflict, not running from it. That's not flow state. For a 9, it's more of knowing how to maneuver, sort of like a keto. When somebody throws a punch at you in a keto, you use their energy and redirect it elsewhere and make it this elegant dance. 9s in flow state aren't afraid of conflict. None of these types in flow state are afraid of their Achilles heel, their kryptonite, and each one has that. But 9, as an example, will no longer be afraid, and they know how to flow through it or move or use that conflict and turn it into a pathway towards true and lasting peace or harmony. That's the 9. Just wanted to give you a vibe on each of these 9 types and really help you think about the Enneagram, bringing it into your life as a way to get back into your mojo, to get unstuck, to get back into your flow. This is an elegant system. It's practical. It's tangible, as you can see, so many tools and strategies around it. So if you'd like to learn more, jump over to defiantspirit.org or reach out to me and we can talk about how to get you back to your Enneagram flow, to go with the flow as you learn how to defy your number, live your spirit, to live your flow.